And this is the annual Education Committee Symposium. A very lucky one that we have this time. This is a full day that will treat you to what one reporter called sort of the college series of courses that you wish you had on this issue. This is Intelligent Design on Trial, lessons from the Kitzmiller Creationism case. And in case you had not by some chance heard about this, despite its national and international coverage, here's the headline to remember from it at the end. The judge ruled against intelligent design policy. Breathtaking inanity was his term. Major conclusions. Intelligent design says religious alternative masquerading as a scientific theory. More than that, it's just creationism relabeled. And the main point from the legal point of view, teaching it in the public schools is unconstitutional. And what you're going to get here today is really from the plaintiff side, the side that was suing the school district, almost everyone who was involved in some way. So let me just go through briefly so you know what will happen today. The first speaker will be Brian Rehm, who was the plaintiff in the case, and then subsequently ran as part of the Dover Cares slate of candidates against the incumbents on the board and swept the election. So he'll tell us about this really from the local point of view, what it was like to be there from the very beginning and come through the post-trial as well. I'll be next. I was an expert witness from the philosophy of science side. Following that, we'll have a break. After the break, we'll have Barbara Forrest. She was an expert witness, really detailing in a very systematic way the connections between intelligent design and creation science, which came before that, a very critical part of the trial. Following that, professor from Georgetown, talked about theological issues, and he'll do that today. Following that, we'll have lunch. Now, the Education Symposium continues after lunch with Brian Alters from McGill University, who was the expert witness on educational pedagogical issues. But there's now, in addition to the program, not something that was officially part of the Education Committee, but something that got filled in after the presidential address got canceled. Eugenie Scott, who's the director of the National Center for Science Education, has been filled in as a special treat, a bonus. And if you look at your program, though, it actually overlaps with some of these slides. So we will improvise a little bit. She will be in that lunchtime slot. Officially it overlaps with Professor Todd's talk. So instead of starting at the time that it's listed for her talk, she will wait until it's finished, and then we'll speak. So that will be over the noon hour here in this auditorium as well. So although that's not part of the symposium as such, it's part of the same topic, and I encourage you to think about that as well. So then, following her talk, that officially ends at 1:15, because she has to start late, probably she will go until 1:30. Then we will go to Brian Alters. After Professor Alters, then we'll have Ken Miller. Ken Miller was the lead scientific witness for the case from Brown University, and he'll really give that. And the only person that we're missing is one of the scientific witnesses, Kevin Padian, who unfortunately had scheduling conflict and couldn't come here today. But really, we've got the full slate of expert witnesses from the science side of this. Then there'll be a break after that. And then following that, a talk from Roy Bevo, who was the lead local reporter in Dover, and she'll talk about her experience covering this case. And then finally, after that, everyone on stage for a panel discussion with the two attorneys for the lead attorneys, if they arrive in time, if their flight arrives in time, they'll join us for that as well. So that will be an open, full discussion. After each of the talks, there will probably be some time for question and answers from the floor as well, so we have microphones in front for that. But the main time for question and answers will be at this panel discussion. And then dinner, and then finally this evening, the public outreach lecture that the Education Committee puts on. In this case, co-sponsored by the Provost Office. We thank them for their contribution to sponsor this. And that will be Eric Rothschild and Steve Harding, two of the attorneys for the plaintiffs in this. So really just an amazing lineup. Those of us who are expert witnesses in this, a lot of this is highlights of our lives to be involved with it. It's quite amazing. But the interesting thing is, none of us really were at the trial at the same time. And so this is the first time that we're all getting together. So over dinner last night, it was just great to sort of share stories. It's not a reunion, really. It's the first time we're together. And so it's quite an event, and I think we'll enjoy hearing the talks. So without further ado, let me turn this over to Brian Rehm.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad I can make it and be part of this today. I can tell you guys very well that you're in for quite a treat today, especially after me, but hopefully including me. The lineup is definitely going to be enjoyable. As a plaintiff, I did have the opportunity to work with most of these individuals, and they're definitely an invaluable resource to all of us that were involved. What we're looking at here, first of all, is that this is the USGS topographical photo of the Dover Area School District. And if you've looked at anything, you keep referring to us as a rural district, and you'll see numbers being near a population of about 1,000 or about 1,500. What that's actually referring to is the little red dot, which is in proper terms Dover Borough. It's about maybe 7 blocks wide and 5 blocks north to south. We also have on the far side of the pinch in the middle is Dover Township, and on the left side is Washington Township. Those are the 3 municipalities that go into the school district that was involved in this particular litigation. And when we take a look at the red dot plus the large green areas, we have a population of closer to 30,000, 27, 30,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. So just keep that in mind. We're a suburbanite / rural area. The far side is suburbanite. The near side to me is the agrarian rural side. So we do have more than 1,500 people as you're commonly seeing in some of the media reports. Now, basically, I'm unique. I don't know if I want to call myself fortunate, in that I do get to give the talk of from parent and teacher to plaintiff and director. I was involved in every aspect of this. Not planned that way, just sometimes that's where life takes us. So how did I get involved? I met my wife, and she was a co-plaintiff, and when we were raising a family, we decided, well, let's move. We were not near either one of our families, and figured it would be a good idea to get close to family. When we looked around, we figured that her community growing up, which was Dover, was a better place. And we were looking at things like safety, family nearby, quality education system, which Dover was considered at the time, a strong sense of community. There's lots of places where you can find employment in the area. And within a reasonable drive, there's lots of opportunities for entertainment, social and spiritual opportunities, and lots of tree-lined streets to walk the kids and the dogs. So these are some of the things that we were looking at that made us want to move to Dover. We've got the tree-lined streets, we've got the cow pastures along with other fields. And in general, it's a nice, pleasant community. We really enjoyed living there, and we were quite happy to move back there to raise a family. Shortly after moving to Dover, the opportunity came up at Dover High School. They needed a new physics teacher, which was my area of specialty, and I applied and was able to secure the position. And I was very excited about it. I got to teach in the home district. I was looking forward to, over the next 10, 12 years, have my own children in the building where I teach. And that was a pleasant thought for me. So here is a family. Myself and my wife are pictured there. I'm holding our youngest, Lucas. In the orange sweater is our daughter, Paige. In the green pants and plaid shirt is our son, Ethan. Holding him is his sister, Alex. And then those are my parents. This was taken at Thanksgiving, as well as one of our dogs. So that's what this whole thing was about, family. This is my other family at the time when this all started. This is my side staff family in Dover. And I would like to consider us a family. We work quite cordial with one another. We spend a good part of our day when we work with our students and each other's classroom. We had common planning time, we had common lunch time. And so these are the players that eventually work their way into trial or experiencing what was going on with the policy. Shortly after joining this team of teachers in Dover, the impression of the Dover community, or at least the school, began to change. Beginning the whole descent, as I'm going to call it, was an election for school board in the fall of 2001. And this election is what really set into motion the change that led to the Creationism intelligent design of Dover Area School District. What we have here is we have pictures of the school board for over 4 years. And where I have things blocked out, those were students included in the picture of that slide. There's some irregular shapes there. Generally, the success of a school district relies on having a stable school board. And here what you can see is 4 different school boards in 4 years' time. And that does, in fact, cause a problem. The first picture in the top left is the school board that was in position when I was hired and began working in the district. This was from 2001. 2001 was an important election year because the school board was considering a high school building project. Our community is not one that's known to be relatively wealthy. Taxes are considerably high, and a building project was an expensive proposition that most people were not willing to swallow. So we had then a promotion from the challengers that were being taxed to death. Obviously, something that resonates well with just about every taxpayer. Socialist taxes are climbing. Needless to say, it worked. And by 2002, the election results eliminated 2 of the former school board members. The one in the bottom that has the crossover face happened to be the former school board president at the time. So definitely an important person that was lost. Replacing those 2 were 2 new individuals. The top green arrow is Alan Bonsell. The bottom green arrow is Angie England. They were both individuals that supported the intelligent design policy. While this was the beginning, they certainly didn't jump into things at this point in time. All of the talk was about taxes, taxes, taxes. The following year saw some resignations over, once again, the building project. And what we have is we lost 2 more school board members, and they were subsequently replaced by 2 more individuals. The top arrow here is Bill Buckingham, and the lower arrow is Jane Cleaver, 2 more supporters of the intelligent design policy. The following year was actually a regular election cycle, and we had another contested election, once again for the tax to death issue being thrown in our face, and we lost another school board member, and she was replaced by the last green arrow, Heather Deasy, once again an intelligent design supporter. She is the only remaining intelligent design supporter on the school board, as her election time did not yet come up. So what we have is over a 4-year period, they continually pushed and pushed and pushed on monetary issues and secured the creationist intelligent design view on the school board. In Pennsylvania, we have 9 members, and 5 votes controls what happens in the district, and that's what they secured within a matter of 4 years. By the end of my first year in Dover, we began seeing the influence of this. Some of the new board members coming on, Alan Bonsell, and then subsequently Bill Buckingham, were feeling quite empowered in their new positions on the school board. And we're looking at every aspect of the district that they could identify that they're going to put their fingers into. This included, they told the superintendent they were going to be doing teacher observations. They were looking at rewriting the book on tenure and tried denying several teachers that qualified their tenure. They also looked at line item addendums to the curriculum. They were going to tell teachers what should go in which course without any justification, just because that's where they wanted it. And the irony here is that these board members who are so blatant and bold about what they want to do for the district and enforcing on us really didn't have the qualifications. What we're looking at in the final board is we have a GED recipient, a high school dropout, a person convicted of fraud that they later certified as the treasurer of the board. It gets better. Someone that doesn't read anything, they compose their shopping list of board meetings. A husband and wife couple, and then we have an auto repair business owner. We have a retired security guard from a prison, and that's what made up our school board. So people that had no vested interest in education, there was not a college degree, there was one college degree amongst them. And that was it, and they were going to make decisions over education. Now, as the science department, Creationism first showed up on our doorstep through our assistant superintendent. This is a picture of Mike Baxa. He is the assistant superintendent, and I guess unfortunately for him, he was new to the job at the time this board came in. This was his first year, and he pretty much had to do what he was told, which makes sense in a lot of ways. And during this time, our district had established a 7-year curriculum cycle. In that 7-year cycle, you're supposed to update the curriculum, screen new books, and then the 7th year, you're supposed to order the books that you felt were most appropriate to the curriculum that was going to be delivered. And halfway through the year of our book selection process, it was quite regular for him to pop into our common lunch period and talk about how's the process going. And one day after, at least after the first marking period, can't pin down exactly when it was, he said, we really need to look at biology a little bit more closely. The board really wants to look at the evolution unit and do some 50-50 time with creationism. Needless to say, we were a little bit drawn back. My initial reaction was I laughed quite loudly, actually. But unfortunately, the joke was on us. While we tried conveying to Mr. Baxa that this is not going to happen, this is not going to happen. These are reasons why it's not going to happen. He would leave that day and come back 2 or 3 days later with, well, that's just not good enough for the board. The board really wants you to take a look at this, and they really want you. This went on for 3-4 months, if not more, and the message just wasn't being communicated. The board was not listening. So this continued, and eventually Mike threw his hands in the air and said, you know what? I don't think I'm telling them the right things. They're not hearing. So how about if you, the science department, meet with the board members and settle this? The board member that we ended up meeting with was Alan Bonsell. Alan Bonsell was on the board at this point in time in his 2nd year. His father had served on the board prior to him. And what basically boiled it down to was that the problem he had with evolution is that man didn't come from monkeys. The Earth is only about 6,000 years old. There are holes so large and dark as I can drive a truck through. And if you teachers are telling kids anything else, you're lying to them. And the reason he was bringing this up as a board issue, according to him, this isn't about religion. You're lying to him because it's against religion, but it's not about religion. It's about our district mission statement. And we're to be working together as teachers and family community to educate the students. And if you teachers have 1/3 of the equations lying to them, we're not working together. So as I said, we initially laughed. However, the joke really, in the end, was on the Dover community. Now, we prodded all this information out of Mr. Bonsell, did not want to be very forthcoming about it. And we documented as much as we could, and in the end, that obviously played a role. And the approach we took was initially a serious one with Mr. Bonsell because he's the guy that's in charge of whether or not we get our books and whether or not we get our funding and what goes on. And so rather than being hostile or laughing at him as we did with the assistant superintendent, we tried to construct a forum. Let's look at what's actually going on in a biology class that you're concerned about. This is what the curriculum has. This is what we do. We're not teaching monkey to man. We're focusing on microevolution, natural selection, and mechanisms that are involved, and therefore it should not be a concern for you. That was the for him. Then he left the meeting, and we left the meeting, and things basically continued as they had prior to the meeting. Obviously, at this point in time, when we had to make a school board member, that sort of elevated what I considered the risk level, and things could not necessarily just be sort of laughed off anymore. So at this point in time, I made a point to get out in my neighborhood and start talking to my neighbors, talking to parents of my students, as many people as could about what was going on in the district, and to try and support us and let the board know that this should not be occurring. Now, the next school year came up. As I said, this was dealing with the curriculum adoption cycle. And what we found is that they were playing quite seriously. They were not going to just listen to the teachers. Who cares if the teachers had the college degrees in biology and science? They don't know what they're talking about. And they did exactly what was in their power to do. They held up the textbooks. In physics, I got the new textbook. Chemistry was delayed because the department chair was obviously quite involved in that like this. The biology textbooks were never ordered, and we could never get an explanation as to why. So as this continued, the next year, even though we were supposed to have the books already, the assistant superintendent still coming in at lunchtime, asking us how the biology curriculum revisions are going and when we might have those ready for the board. So it came up then at a later board meeting that the real reason that the book didn't get ordered is because it was laced with Darwinism. And this was provided to us by Bill Buckingham at a board meeting. At that point in time, Bill Buckingham then started including other things that the teachers should be doing, including we had to sit down and watch a video, Icons of Evolution. We also were expected to preview the book of Pain of the People, and the board's recommendation was that that should become our sole biology text. As a department, 6 people that were up there were all unified, as well as we had a part-time science teacher I did not include there, and we had another teacher that was getting ready to resign for maternity leave. But without that cohesive unit, I don't think we ever would have been able to get what we did, especially in the time frame that we did. Unanimously, we all flat out said, no, this is totally appropriate, and the further we push this, the more we are going to push back. And so it went on and went on and on. They held the textbook, and then public meeting outrage came from parents, and that's when things really started spilling over. By that point in time, these are the effects that we're seeing. I resigned from the district. I had offers to go elsewhere. Also, the board did not respect and listen to teachers. They couldn't listen to taxpayers. So by leaving the district, I was actually moving up on the totem pole and sort of on the food chain, having a better chance of having an influence. We had a principal that when she was brought in, Dr. Peterman, had been very effective, and essentially the board didn't like her because she stood up for the science department. She ended up leaving as well. As the ID policy was crafted and eventually passed, we also then began losing more board members. Our most educated board member resigned, her husband resigned, and then later in protest, Angie Yingling also resigned. The two connected by the blue arrow moved. And what we have is we have basically a power vacuum in the school board that left behind 4 members. 5 new members then would be appointed that led to the lawsuit going as far as it did. Alright, after my departure from the district, the pressure for the textbook began to increase. The teachers needed the books and pushed harder and harder for them, and the board wasn't giving up on the desire to have pandas included. So eventually the teaching staff that remained agreed to a compromise. If the board provided pandas as classroom sets, as a reference book that could sit in the classroom, then the teachers would be able to get their new textbooks. Now, while that might sound a bit frightening that we'd be willing to do that, I still include myself with them because we are, as I said, a family, so to speak. If any of your high school teachers are working in the classroom, you know what you can do. If there's something you're bringing to students to see it, you just throw it in the cabinet. You put it in the corner. You cover it up. Or in physics, you know that's what we drop our masses on to protect the floor top. So there's lots of ways that by agreeing to the board's demands, we could obviously get through and not have to worry about pandas content actually included. Unfortunately, the message of the board was not that teachers wouldn't compromise. The message that the board received was the teachers are laying down and we now have full run to do whatever we so choose. And that's when things really started stacking up. In October 2004, at the public meeting, the board passed their own curriculum change about the curriculum, bypassing the department, the curriculum review committee, and the administrative review. Change implemented by the board required teachers to instruct students on the gaps and problems in Darwin's theory of evolution. In addition to evolution, students would also be made aware of alternative views that differ from Darwin's, including intelligent design. And so we finally had this transition from creationist language specifically to include intelligent design. Finally, the media reported on just how far it had gone, and the public was finally beginning to pay attention. 2 board members, as I said, resigned in protest. Those would be the Browns, the top 2 circles side by side. The more public stood up and challenged the change process and reasoning, but obviously there was no success. If there was, it would have gone to a lawsuit. And this continued on. At this point in time, Bill Buckingham had basically had enough of people challenging his ideas. And so board meetings, rather than being civil discussions and passing of necessary policy and spending information, began to disintegrate into shouting matches. Common statements from the board to the audience were, which side of your family came from monkeys? Are you born again? Was a common question they would ask. Well, you're just an atheist, was the answer that would be given when the question was asked at the board. And of course, we also had the lovely statement from Bill Buckingham, 2,000 years ago, man died on the cross, can't we take a stand for him? As well as, this is a Christian nation, found Christian principles, if you don't like it, go back to where you came from. Now, as a parent and a former employee in the district, these are obviously very concerning things to be hearing from the governing body that's dictating my children's education. So, due to the resignations, and this is something that I will never quite understand, the school board gets to pick their own replacement. So if there's a vacancy, people that are in agreement that the person resigned because of gets to say who's going to be next. So what you have is you have a process that allows the board to become even more consistent with one another, swinging way out of line and away from what's best for the community. I threw my hat into the arena at that point in time to interview to be one of these school board members. Needless to say, I didn't succeed. I know this is not a good picture, and I apologize for it, but what we have here is the red arrows are the eventual board replacements. First one is David Piersky. He moved to the community about 3 years ago from California. His family contributed over $9,000 to election campaign alone, and they all live in California, so I'm not sure what they're doing funding a local school board election. Ronald Short was a church member of Bill Buckingham's church. James Cashman is a former homeschooler. His brother's a pastor of a fundamentalist church in the area. We then have Edward Rowland. He is a fundamentalist pastor. We then have Eric Riddle, who is a homeschooler. And the whole time he's been the only person at every board meeting saying, you guys are doing a great job. I give this district an A+, but I'll never put my kids in your school. And then we had the wild card that nobody was sure of, Sherry Lever. And so that's the school board that we then had. So we had everybody that was in agreement on intelligent design, and that's what led to the lawsuit going forward as far as it did. The next few meetings continued in December. We have to do an realignment in the state of Pennsylvania, and new officers are elected within the board to different seats. And what we had was a transfer of presidency from Alan Bonsell to Sheila Harkins. And this is where my role really began to change from a parent and teacher into now becoming a plaintiff, and eventually really going after the board to take the seats from them. One of her first actions in December, due to public outrage about the ID policy, is she canned all public comments at board meetings. So it's a public meeting where they're supposed to listen to constituents, and the first thing she said is, you will not say a word, nobody will talk. If there's any problems with that, we'll just cancel the meeting, go to recess, and make you wait. At which point in time, I picked up the cell phone, called home to my wife to get the lawyer's phone numbers, and that's when I officially signed on to the intelligent design lawsuit. The lawsuit was viewed as a last resort, and some people in our community really don't get that. They think we're all gung-ho and let's go sue the school district every chance we get. But I fought it for over 2 years as a teacher, I fought as a parent, I fought as a taxpayer, I interviewed for the board and was humiliated. And I had done everything that I could. So when they transitioned from just affecting children's education to then silencing the community and violating even further our First Amendment rights, it was time to pursue other means. Now, that takes us to getting into the trial, and I'm sorry I don't have the lovely graphics here, but you'll see more and more of them as the day goes by. I did not get to meet the rest of the plaintiffs really until the day that the lawsuit was announced. I'd been in contact initially with the Harrisburg office of the ACLU. I was then in contact with Pepper Hamilton, and Americans United obviously played a role in our assistance as well. And I did not get to meet the rest of the plaintiffs until the day that the lawsuit was announced in mid-December at the Capitol. The plaintiffs were a great bunch, and I don't think anybody would have been prepared for that in advance. And it's difficult because obviously being on the inside of the district and having a lot of knowledge of what was going on, I was sort of forced into, if I wanted to change, being one of these spokespeople. And that's not something I was necessarily looking for or something I ever aspired to in my life prior to intelligent design. And you really feel that you're hung out all alone. You're sort of there for the vultures to pick apart and see what's left behind. And by the time we met the plaintiffs, what you begin to realize and get a sense of that rather than feeling you're in this downward spiral and lost within your community and things are out of control, there are more people out there that understand what the real ramifications are and really have the same concerns as you do, and are also really willing to stand up because they necessarily know how to. So basically, we still see each other all the time. The trial's been over now for quite a while. We've gone on vacations together. We have holidays together. There's some photos here from the Halloween party. We were able to go, and after Bill Buckingham resigned from the board and moved to North Carolina, we went down to find the Outer Banks and see what's so great about it, and we figured it out. The intelligent designer evidently linked it there. So we do have a good time, and the sense of humor is something that's really necessary to help get you through this. Because for me in particular, this process has been going on for over 4 years, leading up to the trial, and it's a very tiring process. And the support and the camaraderie really helped in the end. Now, beyond that, I get from the plaintiff aspect then into the school board director. I don't know how many people here have ever run for political office. It's an important thing to do, and I would never want to do it again, but I suspect I'm going to have to make sure that we have some stability in our school district. We were able to form a counter group to the school board's candidates. Due to the resignations in the regular election cycle, there were 8 of 9 seats up for election. Typically, it's supposed to be alternating every 2 years, 5 seats in one cycle, 4 seats the next. And so we have a very unique situation emerging where 8 seats were up for election all at once. We put together a group called Dover Cares, and we were able to fill all 8 seats with candidates. If we can get there. Yeah. Well, we'll leave that because it seems to be. There we go. Sorry. That's going to be what's going to do now. Alright. We're going to put together a political action committee and field 8 candidates for the 8 seats that were vacant. I was selected as one of those candidates that would actually run. We had a group of, I'd say at any given time, there's probably 60 to 80 names on our active roster, and probably about 40 people that were actively participating on a weekly basis to get the election information out. Everything was done within the group. It was a very collaborative effort. We had independents, we had Democrats, we had Republicans, we had constitutionalists, and probably libertarians as well, so it was a very diverse group. And by focusing on the quality education issue, focusing on the quality government issue, we were able to finally turn things around. It was not by any stretch an easy process. While it was introduced as the fact that we swept the election, if you look at the seats, it does look like that. Unfortunately, we can't say that we swept the election unilaterally. We won 51% of the vote. So effectively, yeah, we won. But at the same time, it's not a shit's going away in our community. And what really won this election for us, unfortunately, was staying positive. Anybody gets involved with this, you've got to send out the positive message. You've got to take the high road. We tried one piece that we thought was relatively high road, but hitting them in every area where they've made a mistake. And the community retaliated. They did not like any negative advertisements whatsoever. And so in the end, it wasn't evolution, unfortunately, that won this election. It wasn't scientific thinking that won this election. It wasn't any of those things dealing with reason and logic. It was simply a matter of public perception. We were able to maintain the higher road for a longer period of time. They had to go through trial, where they showed their true colors, and that cost them votes. It is something that's rather unfortunate and difficult that we still need to address. The community-wide efforts of CARES did pay off. We did win, and we had a lot of support. These are pictures from the polls in November. You can see quite busy. The CARES supporters are all in red. There's some people that are celebrating, having a good time. There's some people that are working, more solemn. And it's a long day. We're out there from roughly 6 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, trying to plug ourselves and make sure everybody knows exactly who we are and why they should vote for us. The one thing we did get that was a boost is that while we were used to the adult side of it and worrying about making sure that the best education system for our kids, the kids got involved in it too. And so in high school at out on that Tuesday, the polls started filling up with high school students plugging our candidates because they want to see the school board change as well. And it's reassuring to realize that you're not just doing this in a vacuum, and that the intended audience that you're fighting for is getting a point and is willing to come out to work for the change as well. As I said, it's not going away by 51% of the vote. Enough that one particular appointee to the board that was closest to maintaining the seat convinced the judge that, you know what, I'm not sure they actually won. Let's have another election. So I got sucked back into a second election. The judge was sensible enough to say, there may have been a problem, we'll take the lowest one from them and the highest one from the incumbents and let them run off. So I did have to run through 2 elections in a 1-year cycle. I won both times by about 100 votes. And so I have 2 copies of the election certificate actually for winning the seat twice. Fortunately, I only have to serve 4 years on that one election instead of compounding it to 8 years. But yes, it is interesting the way things work out sometimes. Now, we had a lot of people that said supporting us, and there's different things that went on. These are one of the pieces that circulated over the internet, and it was just a collection of headlines that have been showing up in the paper for a while that an individual in the community put together so people could really get a view of what was going on and what was wrong with what was happening in Dover. These headlines probably came from a period of about a year and a half, and you can see they're all over the place. We have creationism ones, they deny creationism. We have the forgery information. We have the drug use situation. It was all shown up and shown in the community that there is a better way. These are not positive feeders. And it all did come into play. I'll start to wrap things up here because I think I've already run out of time a little bit. And that's taken into my closing remarks. Every role is important, and every one of us has to play a role. To sit back and not do anything, unfortunately, is consent, and that's the way it is read by the challengers. To do nothing is exactly what they would like from us. If we have the knowledge, we need to share it. The community needs the support. When we were the teachers in Dover, we were fighting this for a long time, 2 years on our own. There was no outside support. We didn't have the professionals. We didn't have the local college professors standing up to the board saying this is inappropriate. We didn't have the parents that were knowledgeable enough to challenge the board what was going on. So if you know that this stuff is going on in your community, any support you can lend helps. All right? Find your circle of people and work together because everybody can have a different viewpoint. And it works better when you hear from 10 or 12 different people rather than one person 12 times. You need to keep going. You can't rest because the other side's not going to rest. Every time we thought we had a break, every time we thought we could relax, it would go away, they came back with even more people. And unfortunately, you've got to keep it up. There's no rest in this battle. You really don't like to think of things in terms of war. You've got to be positive, no matter what. I know I always get tired of it. I just look at somebody say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Just keep your mouth shut. I'm telling you the right way. Listen, it doesn't work. Right? They don't like it. They consider it insulting. I can understand why, but it's also sort of a knee-jerk reaction that we have automatically, instinctively, because in science we typically are not like that. But at the same time, some of the criticisms are legitimate. We're not always good communicators. We're not always out there expressing ourselves to the people that need to hear it the most. We like to talk in our science circles and like to talk to people that understand us to begin with. And we need to sometimes challenge ourselves to go beyond that. The moment that our campaign went negative, like I said, they let us know. And in the end, what really won us the election was the fact that the other side, the incumbents at the time, couldn't stay positive. The only way they thought they could beat us was by going negative. They attacked us because of the ACLU. They tried linking us to homosexuals. They were calling us minorities. And these are not things that go over really well in Dover. They don't like homosexuals, they don't like minorities, unfortunately. So, by going negative and then showing true colors in tribe, that's really what won us the election. It wasn't a matter of being sensible and reasonable. And in the end, what I'd like to say is that today, Dover is a great place to be. When I was growing up, I had a good role model. They always talked about being a good place to be from or being a good place to be. And for a while there, Dover was a great place to be from. And I'd like to say that today it's getting back to being a great place to be. We still have a way to go, but we do have a lot of good things going on. Dover was worth fighting for, and that's why we had to do it. We've got a lot of great people, a lot of great things in the community, a lot of great opportunities for our children, a lot of great teachers, and a lot of great students that are all worth the risk. Our schools are getting back on track, and things, while difficult, are certainly looking up. So I thank you for your time today. And I thank you for any support that you've shared with us in any way. I thank all of the members of the panel that did contribute to the Dover plaintiffs. We would have been lost without them. And anybody that picks up the reins and takes on an effort in their own communities to hopefully stop these attacks on reason, logic, and quality education, I thank you. The one thing that really came off for us, and this was in the campaign, as a plaintiff, we really didn't have a whole lot to say. We were basically told by the legal team, you want to say as little as possible because we want to come back and be used against you later. But in the campaign aspect, what we had done is we had some people who moved into the district and had I call it an untainted view, so that they could really look more objectively at what was going on and sort of gave us some input. And what we put together was an assessment of the school board and what they had accomplished in their time frame. But what we had done is rather than say, well, they said they weren't going to raise taxes and they raised them 21%, we tried that and it wasn't getting through to people. Oh, whatever, numbers, I don't get it. So what we ended up doing is we took a whole bunch of situations such as that and we framed it in terms of what you get in school, a report card. And so we basically looked at every aspect they claimed to be successful at, gave the real assessment of what it was, and then gave them what we call a straight F report card. And the community, even though it was factual, and it was not slamming those individuals, slamming their policy and their governing practices, the community saw it as a personal attacks, and they really retaliated. We got more negative emails, more negative phone calls, more doors slammed in the face after that than any other time in the whole process. So, like I said, you're going to have to keep in terms of, they raised your taxes 21%. and just let it go at that. Realize there's got to be a better way. Couldn't they have done less than 21%? They said they were going to raise them at all, and not go to that where it's a fine line, it's a fine balance, and you really have to err on the side in this case of overly avoiding negativity.
The first couple of years, you said you felt like you were struggling alone, more or less, and I assume that's because you just didn't know where to get help, right? Because there does exist, for instance, National Center for Science Education, just for people like you. What can we, as biologists and CSE, do to make you more aware of what's happening?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure, aside from being diligent and talking to your peers. We were unaware of groups such as NCSE, and we had been working as our group, our department. We were doing as much on the internet as we could, and we were basically going into the key terms of intelligent design, creationism, words that were being thrown at us, and finding out what the legal cases were, etc. We never actually found the NCSE resource. It was brought up to me later on by what turned out to be the two co-plaintiffs after the November interview for school board, where I was turned down in favor of the homeschooling. And that's when it was first brought up to me. Unfortunately, I really don't know. I think that in some ways just the fact that the trial has occurred and there has been so much more media attention and that NCSE has been such a valuable part of our legal team, hopefully that people see that resource is out there. But just go to as many conferences as you can, talk to as many of your professionals as you can around. Unfortunately, I know in our district did not really want us going to conferences. They did not really promote that type of furthering our education. So we didn't get to talk to a lot of professionals outside the building unless we had connections through other means. So just, you're all here. That's part of it. Now, talk to your coworkers or your friends that you know are in that situation and make sure they're talking to others. And the more we talk with one another rather than burying our heads within our work, within our classroom, the better off we're going to be. And it's time for one more than another. Sure.
I had a question about your example of the most positive message that you sent and where that was and what the work does, I should say.
I don't know that there is just a single one, and I think that's what really worked for us, is that we had a diverse group. I mean, there was 8 of us, and we were all 8 individuals. When we had common goals and we worked together, we really complemented each other. So I have an education aspect. We have somebody that has a business management aspect. We have somebody that was a nurse, and she was in charge of intensive care units, so she had the managerial aspect. And then we have somebody that's a vice president of a manufacturing company, so he's got the business connections. And so we're really just a team, and by being able to share those connections and being able to sit down and have conversations. And we spent a lot of time with the media, and we held 3 or 4 press conferences specifically, where we said, we're going to be here for a couple hours, come with your questions, and we'll talk to you until you get tired of us. And that openness is something that was lacking from the previous board. So that, and doing that repeatedly, is what really worked. The other thing, we had to beat on doors, a lot of doors. Now, there is strategies to do that, and if you're in the situation, check with your local Republican, Democratic committees. They'll be able to get you streamlined lists because, like I said, we have roughly 30,000 residents in Dover, and roughly 8,000 of them voted. So, 22,000 people we need to talk to. We started beating this out after the first round. But just being able to go to somebody's door, and I can tell you how many doors I had slammed in my face. You're a plaintiff, you're one of those ACLU people, you're associated with NAMBLA because that's when the mailings is sent out. Or, I'm a good Christian, they slam the door, forget their windows open, you're just an atheist bagel as I'm walking away. It's like, okay, good example. The more I can take that and actually just smile and say, thank you, but I'm sorry you're misinformed, can we still sit down and talk? The better off we did. It's tough, and it's tougher getting them to listen. I don't know what that magic point is. It's tougher getting them to listen than it is to sit there and take it and still keep a smile on your face and try again.